Welcome back. Today I'll be going over chapter 16 of Priscilla Presley's book, Softly as I Leave You. But before I begin, I just want to let you guys know that I aim, keyword aim, to keep my videos not too long. I try to keep them around 10 minutes long, give or take. But as this book goes on, the chapters seem to get longer and longer and sadder and sadder. My last video was 20 minutes long, so sorry about that, guys. Anyway, let's get started. Priscilla starts the chapter talking about her granddaughter, Riley Keough. Little Riley was now an adult, and she was an accomplished adult now. She says that Riley was like Lisa Marie in that, quote, she was a loving, sensitive, talented, free spirit with a killer sense of humor, end quote. Riley had been a model and also appeared on magazine covers and was a Golden Globe nominated actress. And she also started her own production company. Priscilla says that Riley is also a talented writer, as Priscilla painfully learned after the passing of Lisa Marie. She says she's intensely proud of Riley, not just for her accomplishments, but for who she is as a person. In 2015, Riley married Ben Smith Peterson, and they referred to her husband as Big Ben and her little brother as Ben Ben. Priscilla said that it was a big ceremony that was officiated by Jerry Schilling. Riley wore a vintage-style wedding dress, and Priscilla says that she looked so much like Lisa Marie that day. Priscilla says in another life, Elvis would have been there and sung to Riley, and maybe they would have convinced Elvis to dance. 3 years later, her father, Paul Beaulieu, passed away. Paul was her adoptive dad, as she had mentioned before, and she said that he was the only father she had ever known. She goes over his long military career, which I'm not going to go over just for the sake of time, but thank you for your service, Captain Beaulieu. Priscilla says it was when Paul was stationed in Germany was when she and Elvis had met. And she adds that, quote, more than once, he wished I hadn't. Paul wished that she hadn't met Elvis. She says that her dad took a lot of heat for allowing her to date Elvis at such a young age. After their first, quote, date, he had actually forbidden Priscilla from seeing Elvis again, but she had objected. So Paul spoke with Elvis's commanding officer for what she calls a character reference. And upon meeting Elvis, at Paul's insistence, he told Elvis that Priscilla was to be treated with respect and was to be chaperoned at all times. She says that Elvis being allowed to spend time with her was conditional, and if his terms weren't met, it would be revoked. Priscilla says that her mother, Anne, had a lot to do with her dad allowing Elvis to see Priscilla. Priscilla spoke more freely with Anne, and she assured her mom it was just a friendship and that nothing inappropriate was happening, and her mom believed her. Priscilla said that her parents knew that Elvis was leaving back to the United States soon, and that Priscilla and Elvis's, quote, acquaintance would end within a few weeks. She says, and I'm going to quote her here, quote, the truth is Elvis and I weren't dating then in the traditional sense of the word. That didn't happen until 3 years later, end quote. She says the Elvis that she met when she was 14 wasn't the big rock star. He was a deeply homesick young man. He was still traumatized and grieving the unexpected death of his mom, Gladys. He was now living in an unfamiliar country far away from home. She says that he was homesick, but he also worried very much what would happen when he went back home. He was worried about the longevity of his career in the relatively new world of rock and roll. Would it still be the same? Priscilla says that she thinks her appeal initially was that she was someone from, quote, home, by which I'm assuming she means like a fellow American, and that she, in her description, was a sympathetic listener. She says that they spent most of their time together talking or listening to music. When they were alone, they spent most of the time talking about his mother, and he'd cry and she'd hold his hand. Sometimes they'd lie down and hold each other and kiss. But she said he never touched her sexually. He held her tenderly and respectfully, and she says that her parents were right to trust Elvis to treat her properly. Priscilla says when she was 17, Elvis wanted her to move to Memphis. She said that this was not a casual request, but a carefully thought through arrangement by Elvis. She said Elvis spoke with Paul and told him the plans for her moving to Memphis. She would live with Vernon and Vernon's wife at their home, and that she would attend a good Catholic school for her senior year. And Elvis would keep her guarded and treat her with nothing but the respect that she deserved. And she says that Elvis never directly said it, but implied that he eventually wanted to marry Priscilla. And that's why he wanted her to move to Memphis. And I'm going to quote Priscilla here. Quote, "My father believed that Elvis was serious, but I don't think he would have allowed the arrangement if I hadn't threatened to run away." End quote. I don't recall her saying that in her first book, that she was going to run away. Anyway, she says that she told her parents that she would find a way to move to Memphis with or without their permission. And she describes herself as as defiant and sincere. Her parents had to consider what Elvis was proposing. So she and Paul flew out to meet Vernon. Paul toured the school, and he, and I assume Vernon, she doesn't say in this book with whom Paul spoke, whoever he spoke with, agreed to terms on Priscilla's living situation. She admits that she and Elvis didn't do a good job adhering to the terms because she soon moved into Graceland. But she says it was her decision, not her parents. And she said it angers her that her parents got so much grief about a situation that was, quote, largely out of their control. Priscilla says when Paul retired from the military, he moved to California. And she believes that it was so that he could be closer to her to make up for the years that they had lost when she lived in Memphis. She had bought her parents a home in Brentwood near her own home, which was in Beverly Hills. Paul died in 2018 of kidney failure at the age of 92. He chose to be buried in a Catholic cemetery rather than a military one. Paul was laid to rest at Holy Cross Cemetery with full military honors. She describes Paul as, quote, an honorable man, an upright man who chose to raise another man's daughter as his own. And for that, I honor him and I mourned his passing. She says, in life, losing your father is normal, but losing your grandson is not. She never thought that Benjamin would precede everyone in death and eventually take his mother with him. Priscilla talks about how Lisa embodied her dad in many ways, such as temperament and physical appearance. And like Elvis, she pondered the meaning of life from the time that she was young. Lisa would go through Elvis's religious books and read his notes, the notes he had written in them. Priscilla believes that, quote, Lisa also inherited the capacity for intense parental connection like that between Elvis and his mother. End quote. Priscilla said that long after Gladys's passing, Elvis would breathe in the scent of his mom's clothing. That's so sad. She says Lisa loved all her children, but she had an intense bond with Benjamin. He looked just like Elvis, and Lisa looked at him as a gift from heaven. Priscilla says that Elvis began dyeing his hair black when he was a teenager, but he was actually born blonde, just like Benjamin. If you do a side-by-side of baby Benjamin and baby Elvis, they look identical. She says when Lisa took Benjamin backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, his resemblance to Elvis became the talk of the evening. Priscilla says that Benjamin never complained within the family about his striking resemblance to his grandfather, but his friends said that he was bothered by the frequent comparison. She says Ben was very shy and didn't like attention, so it must have been really hard to carry the legacy of his grandfather. She describes Ben as having, quote, a fragile, soulful quality about him, end quote, and that it was no wonder that Lisa was so fiercely protective of Benjamin. Priscilla says just like Gladys overprotected Elvis, Lisa overprotected Benjamin. And Lisa would question him every time he went out, which Priscilla admits Lisa learned from her. Priscilla says that she understands why Lisa did it, saying that it came from a place of love and that raising a Presley child is a huge responsibility. Because Elvis had indulged Lisa, she indulged her own children. Priscilla says that leniency was Lisa's love language. So if the kids didn't want to go to school, she let them stay home. Lisa would joke with Riley that Benjamin was her favorite child, which Riley took in good humor. Lisa's song, Storm and Grace, is a testament to her love for her son. In the summer of 2020, Lisa, Benjamin, and the twins moved to a Beverly Hills hotel while Lisa's home was worked on for a mold infestation. It was during the pandemic, so Benjamin would go back and forth from the hotel to the house so that he could spend time with his girlfriend, Diana Pinto. On July 12th, Benjamin was at the house where they threw a birthday party for Diana that went late into the night. Priscilla said that there are varying accounts of what happened that night. Some guests had said that Benjamin had disappeared into the bathroom after a loud argument with Diana. Other guests said that he was going to get a beer and then just never came back. And some people said that they heard a woman yell, "Don't do it," then heard a gunshot. When his friends went to look for him, they found that the bathroom door was locked. So they picked the lock and found Ben on the floor. He had shot himself in the mouth. Lisa's assistant was at the party, and she wanted the family to know before the news had hit the media. But she didn't want to be the one to tell Lisa, so she called Riley first at a little after 5 a.m. Riley and her husband went straight to the hotel to tell Lisa. Then Riley called her dad and then called Priscilla. Priscilla said that she then called Navarone and then called Vicky to ask her to go to her house to watch the dogs while Priscilla went to the hotel in shock. She said she was just stunned and didn't cry yet. So Priscilla doesn't detail what she did at the hotel. Was she there to watch the twins? Because remember in Lisa's book, Riley says that Lisa left the twins at the hotel with a babysitter, but the babysitter was never named. So I wonder if it was Priscilla. Anyway, Priscilla says that all she could think about was Lisa and how Lisa would never recover from this. The autopsy report verified that Benjamin had died by suicide. Lisa's manager, Roger Widnowski, announced Benjamin's passing to the public. Priscilla shared a separate public statement a few days later. I'm not going to read the statements, but they were very heartfelt. Priscilla says that shock kept Lisa going while she and Danny planned the funeral, but that Riley was not doing well. Riley had almost stopped talking completely, and her friends would have to carry her to the shower and would wash her hair and get her to eat. And she says that the twins wouldn't stop crying. The whole family was just struggling with the loss and why it happened. Priscilla says that the worst part in this grief was that Lisa would not allow Priscilla to comfort her. And she knew that Lisa was still angry with her about refusing to sign the Lockwood deposition. Priscilla says that, like with Elvis's passing after Ben was gone, everything was a blur. She doesn't remember much about what happened in the immediate aftermath, but she does remember going to see Benjamin after his death. When Ben's body was released, Lisa brought him home. Priscilla went over and she says that she believes Ben was in Lisa's room. He was lying on a table, and although the back of his head was badly damaged, his face, she says, was beautiful. She says she touched his hand and stroked his face and told him how much she loved him, and she wept. Lisa ended up renting a house because no one could bear to be inside the home where Ben had died. And she had made she had made arrangements with a funeral home that would allow her to keep Ben at the rental with her. He was kept in a coffin filled with dry ice in a detached room with the thermostat set at 55 degrees. She says that Lisa spent a lot of time with Ben there. Priscilla recalls when Elvis had passed away and his body was back at Graceland, she and Lisa had visited him after the public viewing, and that it was quiet, and they both kissed Elvis goodbye that last night. Being with Elvis's body comforted Lisa just as Ben's body did. 2 weeks after Benjamin passed away, a private funeral was held for him. She says that Priscilla sat across the aisle and Navarone sat next to her. And Ben lay in an open coffin in a separate room, looking serene in his suit and hat. Benjamin's body was taken back to Lisa's, where he stayed for another 2.5 months. And then on October 1st, he was laid to rest at Graceland near Elvis. That's it for chapter 16. Stay tuned for chapter 17, where Priscilla details Navarone's at-home detox. And then she also talks about her parents' marriage and the passing of her mom. I'll see you then.